Salam everyone. Let's talk about some folklore. And before you get started, it's a good idea to pray Ayatul Kursi. In the dim streets of Morocco, where superstition and truth are often mixed, lies a legend, a dark, unexplainable mystery. A mystery that has driven 35,000 men to madness. The mystery of Aisha Qandisha. Moroccan folklore describes Kandisha as a half-witch and half-jinn type entity. Her upper half is that of a human woman, beautiful, yet her lower half is that of a goat, hideous, and her whole body is covered in a black garment. Some sources say she was born to a human mother and a jinn father, which is why she is what some say a hybrid. Moroccan folklore has described her as a water jinn that rests on the banks of rivers, waiting for men to pass by her. Locals say that whenever kids go out swimming in the sea or the rivers, they are warned not to venture too far or Kandisha will catch and drown them. Many people have different opinions of where she is found. Robert Lebling, in his book Legend of the Fire Spirits, says she is found in the sewers of Fez, or the river near Tétouan. Others say she is found prowling around the Sultan's palace, the Agdal Gardens, or the banks of River Sebel. But all have the same opinion, that should you encounter her, enamor her with gifts, otherwise she will drown you with her. But sometimes she isn't found in water. Sometimes she is known to stalk the dim streets of Morocco. There are reports that say she is found in Azamor city. Actually, some consider it to be the home of Aisha Qandisha, as it is quite famous for being haunted due to her. She finds heartbroken lovers, possessing them, causing them to fall in love with her. But these men usually go crazy. They become Majnoon, entrapped in her illusion of twisted love, and enter into a state of madness. It is said that men who are afflicted usually become impotent or lose interest in human women. She also possesses women as well, doing the same thing to them. If a pregnant woman comes under her possession, she'll have a miscarriage. But her list of types of victims does not stop there. She is known to possess husbands, wives, divorcees, someone who has lost their loved ones, anyone who has problems involving a loved one. The only way, some people say, is to cure the possessed is through special curing groups. The most famous among them is the Hamad Shah. In Vincent Crapanzano's book, Hamad Shah, a study into the Moroccan ethno-psychiatry, he describes the Hamad Shah as a Sufi brotherhood who trace their lineage back to two Sufi saints, Sidi Ali ben Hamdush and Sidi Ahmed Doghuri. This particular type of brotherhood is known for curing men possessed by Kandisha. In fact, only this particular brotherhood holds the power to defeat Kandisha. Legend has it that its founder Sidi Ahmed Doghuri, sorry if I'm pronouncing it wrong, several hundred years ago played a flute and a drum to drive out Kandisha from possessed victims. Since then, the cure for these possessions are musical performances and sacrificial rituals, which are known to appease Kandisha and drive her out. Yet how successful are these rituals? One only has to look at what Harvard psychologists Douglas Davis and Susan Davis have to say. In their studies and research into psychology in Morocco, they've reported instances where possessed men who have been induced with overwhelming sexual or romantic problems caused by Kandisha have been cured by the Hamad Shah's performances and sacrificial rituals. Davis has also remarked that the Hamad Shah are actually quite contradictory. They view Kandisha as a source of suffering for many people, treated as a problem that needs to be rooted out. Yet during the performances, they use sweet words to drive her out, often using polite and positive language. Paul Bowles, a novelist and ethnomusicologist who grew up in Morocco, gave an interview to Rolling Stone magazine in 1974, giving an opposite, more grounded opinion, claiming that it was a form of mass psychosis. Mass psychosis is when a large population of society becomes entrapped in their own delusions, devoid of what is factual or not. In Kandisha's case, he claims that there is mass hysteria around a character named Aisha Qandisha. 25 years ago, he says, there were 35,000 men married to her. A lot of people in Bura Chad Psychiatric Hospital are married to her. When you look at her, or when she comes in front of you, you become married to her. And then you start behaving strangely and distance those around you. Even now, if you go to the banks of the Tangiers, you'll find her husbands in search of her, trying to find her, and when they do, they make love to her. Yet, there are also reports and claims that say that they have seen her. A Reddit user by the name of Baylock described an encounter with the legendary jinn Aisha Qandisha. He describes that when he was 7, he was spending time with his relatives in Morocco for the summer holidays. They owned a farm just outside the Tangier, about 40 kilometers outside. They had no electricity, nor access to proper roads, no TV, and no radio. This was back in the 80s, he says. He was given a task by his grandmother to find good stones to peg spikes, but he couldn't find some nearby and ventured out further away until neither his grandma or the cows she herded were visible. In trying to find the rocks, he came face to face with a strange creature behind one of the large rocks whose face was constantly shifting, but somehow the creature was smiling at him with its ivory sharp teeth. It had horns protruding from his forehead, and his bottom half was that of a goat, with hooves as feet. It was covered in filthy fur or horsehair as he described it. He screamed and ran back to his grandma. On the way back, he couldn't get rid of this entity as it appeared to have kept up with him. It appeared behind trees and large boulders, snickering and feeding off his face as he described it. Its face starting to shift and its mouth covering half of his face with his teeth growing larger. It was a grotesque image he described as fear and panic overtook him. Luckily, his grandma heard his screams and found him to be a broken mess, trying to explain what he saw. She remained calm throughout, as if a veteran on these matters. She reassured him and went to check it out, but there was no one there. Then, as a precaution, she started praying out loud as they went back to the farm. He persists till this day and says that what he saw on that day was real, and it wasn't just a figment of his imagination. Though, I don't think that the creature was really Kandisha, because the features he described were different to what other sources have said it was. Still, it was an interesting account to read. The myth of Aisha Qandisha have different views. One side believes her to be real and uses centuries-old rituals to drive her out. The other side believes that she is just a figment of people's imagination and a type of delusion they've created and entrapped themselves in. And the final side believes that she was a real person that became a legend later. Whatever the case, at the end of the day, as a Muslim, all I can say is Allah knows best, and I'll leave it at that. Jazakallah khair.